Most people move through life believing that things just happen. They call it luck when something works out and bad luck when it doesn't. They hope the right opportunity shows up, the right person notices them, or the right break finally arrives. The 1% don't think this way. They understand that nothing meaningful is random. Every result has a cause, and every cause is a choice, whether conscious or unconscious. When the 1% look at their life, they don't ask why things are unfair. They ask what produced the outcome they're seeing. If their finances are unstable, they don't blame the economy or timing. They trace the effect backward to habits, decisions, and patterns. They know that money is not something you chase, it is something that responds to value, discipline, and consistency. Hope doesn't create results, structure does. This way of thinking removes emotion from decision making. While others are driven by how they feel in the moment, the 1% focus on what compounds over time. They know that skipping one workout, avoiding one hard conversation, or delaying one important decision may seem harmless, but repeated over months and years, those small causes create massive effects. They don't wait until the damage is visible, they act when the warning signs are small. The average mind reacts to life, the 1% design it. They understand that every environment shapes behavior. If focus is constantly broken, they don't complain about lack of discipline. They change the environment. If progress is slow, they don't look for motivation. They look at systems, because systems are predictable, and predictable systems produce predictable results. This cause, in defect thinking also changes how they handle failure. When something doesn't work, they don't internalize it as a personal flaw. They treat it as feedback. Emotion says, I'm not good enough. Logic says that input didn't produce the desired output. Adjust the input. This mindset keeps them moving forward while others get stuck in self-doubt. The 1% also understand delayed consequences. They know that many decisions feel good now but cost you later, while others feel uncomfortable now but reward you later. Eating poorly today doesn't hurt immediately, but it builds a future problem. Learning a difficult skill today feels slow and frustrating, but it builds future leverage. They choose based on future impact, not present comfort. Hope feels good, but it's passive, cause, and effect thinking is demanding because it makes you responsible. It forces you to accept that if you want a different life, you must do different things consistently, even when no one is watching and no reward is guaranteed yet. The 1% accept this responsibility because it gives them control. They would rather be accountable than powerless. This mindset also removes jealousy. When the 1% see someone successful, they don't envy the result. They study the process. They know that outcomes are visible, but causes are hidden. While most people compare their behind the scenes to someone else's highlight reel, the 1% ask better questions. What habits did this person repeat? What skills did they master? What risks did they take early when no one was paying attention? Over time, this way of thinking rewires identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone waiting for a break and start seeing yourself as someone building inevitability. Progress stops feeling fragile because it's rooted in action, not chance. Confidence grows not from positive thinking, but from evidence created by showing up again and again. The 1% don't deny uncertainty, but they don't surrender to it either. They understand that while they can't control everything, they can control enough to shift the odds dramatically in their favor. They stack small, intelligent causes day after day, knowing that life eventually has no choice but to respond. This is the quiet power of cause. In defect thinking, it doesn't promise instant transformation or dramatic breakthroughs. It promises something stronger, predictability. When you think this way, your future stops being something you hope for and becomes something you engineer. One decision at a time. Most people chase results first. They want the money, the confidence, the recognition, the freedom. They fixate on the outcome and wonder why it never lasts. The 1% understand a deeper truth. Results are temporary, identity is permanent. If you don't change who you are, anything you achieve will eventually slip through your fingers. The 1% start from the inside out. They don't ask, "What do I want?" They ask, "Who must I become for this outcome to be inevitable?" Because they know that behavior follows identity. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your self-image. This is why so many people sabotage themselves right after a breakthrough. They earn more money, but their identity is still wired for scarcity, so they spend it carelessly or play small again. They get an opportunity, but their identity is still wired for doubt, so they hesitate and overthink. The result came faster than the identity could handle. The 1% reverse the order. Before the world rewards them, they upgrade how they see themselves. They decide, quietly and deliberately, "I am someone who finishes what I start. I am someone who keeps promises to myself. I am someone who does hard things without needing applause." These are not affirmations spoken in a mirror. They are identities proven through action. They understand that identity is built through evidence. Every small disciplined action casts a vote for the person you are becoming. When you show up tired, you reinforce the identity of reliability. When you choose long-term growth over short-term comfort, you reinforce the identity of self-respect. Over time, this evidence becomes unshakable confidence. While others wait for motivation, the 1% act from identity. They don't ask, "Do I feel like it today?" They ask, "What would someone like me do in this situation?" That single question removes emotion from the equation. It turns discipline into alignment instead of force. This is also why the 1% don't rely on external validation. When your identity is outsourced to opinions, your behavior becomes unstable. Praise makes you arrogant. Criticism makes you quit. The 1% anchor their identity internally. They measure themselves by standards, not moods or applause. That stability is what allows them to play long games without burning out. Rewiring identity also changes how they speak to themselves. Average thinking is loud, emotional, and self-punishing. One mistake turns into a character flaw. The 1% are firm but precise. They don't say, "I'm lazy." They say, "That behavior doesn't align with who I've decided to be." This keeps correction clean and forward, moving instead of shame-driven. They also understand that identity must come before clarity. Most people say, "Once I'm confident, I'll act." The 1% no confidence is a side effect of keeping promises to yourself. Action comes first, identity follows. Clarity is earned, not discovered. This way of thinking makes progress inevitable. When identity is solid, results become a byproduct instead of a struggle. You no longer need willpower to stay consistent, because inconsistency feels out of character. Quitting feels foreign, playing small feels uncomfortable. The world responds differently to people who move from identity. Their decisions carry weight, their presence feels grounded, not because they're louder, but because they're aligned. They don't chase outcomes desperately, they attract them naturally through congruence. This is the quiet advantage of the 1%. They don't build success on motivation, luck, or temporary intensity. They build it on becoming. And once identity is rewired, results don't need to be chased. They arrive as confirmation of who you already decided to be. Most people treat discomfort like danger. The moment something feels hard, awkward, or unfamiliar, they pull back. They assume resistance means something is wrong. The 1% understand the opposite. Discomfort is not a warning to stop, it's information pointing to where growth is required. When the 1% feel discomfort, they don't immediately try to escape it. They pause and interpret it. They ask what this feeling represents. Is it fear of failure, fear of judgment, or fear of responsibility? They know that these emotions usually appear right before expansion. Comfort rarely builds anything new. Average thinking seeks relief. The 1% seek progress. Relief feels good in the moment, but it quietly keeps life small. Progress often feels uncomfortable, but it compounds into confidence and capability. The 1% are willing to feel uneasy today, so they don't have to feel regret tomorrow. This is why they don't confuse anxiety with inability. Nervousness before a hard conversation doesn't mean they shouldn't have it. Tension before starting something new doesn't mean they're unprepared. It means they're stepping beyond what's familiar. Growth always feels unfamiliar before it feels normal. The 1% also understand that discomfort comes in layers. The first layer is emotional resistance, fear, doubt, and overthinking. Most people stop there. The 1% push through and discover the second layer, which is skill building. Once the skill improves, the discomfort fades. What once felt intimidating becomes routine. They don't glamorize suffering, but they don't avoid it either. They are selective with their pain. They choose the discomfort that leads somewhere instead of the comfort that leads nowhere. Waking up early to work on something meaningful is uncomfortable, but so is staying stuck. One has growth built into it, the other doesn't. Discomfort also becomes a compass. When something consistently triggers resistance, the 1% examine it closely. Often, that's where the highest return is hidden. The task you keep delaying, the habit you keep avoiding, the conversation you keep postponing. These are rarely insignificant. They are usually the exact actions capable of changing your trajectory. This mindset reshapes confidence. Confidence doesn't come from feeling ready. It comes from surviving discomfort repeatedly and realizing you're still standing. Each time the 1% move through resistance instead of retreating, they collect evidence of resilience. Over time, discomfort loses its power to intimidate. The average person waits until discomfort disappears before acting. The 1% act while it's present. They don't need fear to vanish, they need direction. They understand that courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to move forward anyway. This is also why the 1% grow faster than others with similar talent. Talent without tolerance for discomfort stalls quickly. The willingness to stay uncomfortable just a little longer creates an edge that compounds. Skills sharpen, decisions become cleaner, self-trust deepens. Over time, this rewires how the brain interprets challenge. Instead of triggering avoidance, discomfort triggers focus. Instead of panic, it triggers curiosity. Instead of stopping, it signals there is something here worth leaning into. Life doesn't get easier for the 1%. They get stronger. What once felt overwhelming becomes manageable, then ordinary. The stop signs that hold most people back become signposts guiding the 1% forward. This is the quiet discipline behind extraordinary progress. They don't wait for comfort to give permission. They let discomfort point the way and move anyway. Most people believe time is their most valuable asset. They obsess over schedules, productivity hacks, and managing every minute of the day. The 1% see something deeper. Time means nothing if your focus is fractured and your energy is drained. They don't protect hours, they protect the quality of attention inside those hours. The 1% understand that a distracted hour is not equal to a focused hour. 1 hour of deep, intentional work can outperform 10 hours of scattered effort. That's why they don't allow constant interruptions to dictate their lives. Notifications, opinions, unnecessary conversations, and emotional noise are treated like leaks in a system. Small individually, devastating when combined. While others brag about being busy, the 1% are careful about what they allow into their mental space. They know that everything you give attention to takes something from you. Every distraction taxes your nervous system. Every unnecessary decision drains energy. Over time, this leaves people exhausted without having created anything meaningful. Energy is the real currency. The 1% design their days around it. They notice when they feel sharp, when they feel slow, and when they feel depleted. Instead of forcing productivity at all times, they align demanding tasks with high energy windows. This isn't laziness, it's strategy. They know that forcing output when energy is low leads to poor decisions and burnout. They also understand that emotional energy is just as important as physical energy. Drama, conflict, and negativity are expensive. The 1% don't engage in every argument or react to every provocation, not because they're passive, but because they're selective. They refuse to spend emotional energy on things that don't move their life forward. This selectivity often makes them look cold or distant. In reality, it makes them effective. They don't explain themselves to everyone. They don't attend every event. They don't say yes just to be liked. Every commitment is evaluated through one question: does this deserve my focus and energy? If the answer is no, it doesn't matter how urgent it looks. The average person protects time but wastes focus. They sit down to work, but their mind is elsewhere, half present, half distracted. The 1% eliminate friction before it appears. They structure environments to support concentration, fewer tabs, fewer inputs. Fewer open loops, not because they lack willpower, but because they don't rely on it. They also understand recovery. Rest is not a reward, it's a requirement. The 1% don't glorify exhaustion. They know that running on empty leads to reactive thinking. When energy drops, standards drop, discipline weakens, so they guard sleep, nutrition, and mental space with the same seriousness others guard deadlines. This approach compounds. With clear focus, decisions become sharper. With protected energy, execution becomes cleaner, momentum builds without force, while others feel constantly behind. The 1% feel grounded and deliberate. They move slower in appearance but faster in results. Protecting focus also means protecting identity. When you allow everyone else's priorities into your mind, you lose sight of your own. The 1% are intentional about what they consume. Not everything deserves a reaction. Not every opinion deserves consideration. They curate information the same way they curate habits. Over time, this discipline changes everything. Life feels less chaotic. Progress feels more controlled. You stop ending days feeling busy but empty. Instead, you finish knowing exactly what moved the needle. The 1% don't win because they have more time. They win because they waste less attention and leak less energy. They understand that a focused mind and a regulated energy state can bend time in their favor. This is why they advance while others burn out. They don't chase productivity. They protect the conditions that make meaningful work possible. And once focus and energy are guarded, time finally starts working for you instead of against you. Most people make decisions to feel better now. They choose what's easiest, fastest, and most comforting in the moment. If something creates tension, they escape it. If something takes time, they avoid it. The 1% think differently. They are not addicted to immediate relief. They are committed to long-term freedom. Instant relief is seductive because it quiets discomfort quickly. Scrolling, spending, quitting, procrastinating, numbing. These choices don't look dangerous in the moment. They feel harmless, but the 1% see the hidden cost. They understand that relief now often creates pressure later, while discipline now creates ease later. The long game starts with delayed gratification. The 1% don't need to be rewarded immediately to stay consistent. They can work without applause, improve without recognition, and wait without complaining. They understand that real progress is quiet for a long time before it becomes visible. While others ask, what feels good right now? The 1% ask, what compounds? They measure decisions by future impact, not current comfort. Skipping short-term pleasure is not about deprivation, it's about direction. Every choice is a vote for the life they want 5 or 10 years from now. This is why they don't quit early. When progress is slow and results are invisible, the average person assumes something isn't working. The 1% know this phase is normal. They expect boredom, frustration, and doubt. They don't interpret silence as failure. They interpret it as the cost of building something real. The long game also changes how they handle pain. Most people try to eliminate pain as quickly as possible. The 1% choose their pain. They accept the discomfort of learning, discipline, and restraint to avoid the far greater pain of regret, dependence, and wasted potential. One pain leads somewhere, the other doesn't. They understand that momentum doesn't come from intensity, it comes from consistency. Anyone can work hard for a week. The long game requires showing up when motivation fades and progress feels invisible. This is where most people drop out, not because they can't do it, but because they don't see immediate payoff. The 1% trust process over emotion. They don't let temporary moods rewrite long-term plans. A bad day doesn't change the direction. A slow month doesn't erase the vision. They zoom out when emotions try to zoom them in. Perspective becomes their advantage. This mindset also protects them from comparison. People seeking instant relief constantly measure themselves against others. They feel behind, pressured, and impatient. The 1% no comparison distorts time. They focus on trajectory, not position. They understand that someone ahead today may not still be ahead in 5 years. Playing the long game requires faith, but not blind faith. It's earned faith, built from repeated proof that small, disciplined actions eventually create big, undeniable results. Each day they keep going, trust deepens. Not in luck, but in themselves. Over time, the gap widens. The people who chased relief feel stuck, tired, and confused about how time passed so quickly. The 1% look up and realize they've built something solid. Skills, confidence, leverage, and options didn't appear overnight, but they arrived permanently. This is the difference that changes everything. The 1% don't win because they are smarter or more talented. They win because they are patient when others panic, disciplined when others escape, focused when others chase comfort. They understand that the future belongs to those who can wait, work, and stay aligned without needing instant proof. While others seek relief from discomfort, the 1% build a life that eventually removes the need for it.